Today we're going to discuss writing the response essay. There are several steps that we will do. First of all, we'll discuss reading and annotating the article, writing an outline, then composing a summary. Then we'll look at the major features of the response essay and go over 2 organizational patterns along with a model response essay for each one. Before you start writing your response essay, you need to read and annotate the article. If you have not read the article, it is almost impossible to write a response essay. So I suggest download a copy of the reading passage if possible. Then annotate the copy of the reading passage. What do we mean by annotate? That simply means to make notes to yourself about it. You will write different notes in the margins of your article. You will highlight and underline important words. And you can see here the annotation. Once you have made your notes and you have talked to yourself about, what's important, what's not, then you look at your notes and you decide to write an outline. You look at the sentences to write, you use sentences to write the central idea of the reading passage and its main ideas. Then once you've completed the outline, you would go back to the reading passage and look at it to see what you're going to write. Now, once you have written your outline, you'll go back to the original passage and check to be sure that what you have actually corresponds to the real meaning, because you don't want to change the author's ideas. For instance, here using the article Coping with Procrastination, we found that the central focus of the whole article is that the authors Rebecca Moore, Barbara Baker, and Arnold Packer, in their article Coping with Procrastination, identify 5 causes of procrastination and offer solutions for overcoming each one of them. And here they are, because each of the body paragraphs are developed in 2 ways. They give the name of the problem causing the procrastination, like having real or imagined fear about consequences. Then they say, how are you going to overcome that source of procrastination? And I go back and I look at each one of the paragraphs to make sure in the original article that I truly have what has caused the procrastination and how to overcome it. Also notice that in my central focus sentence, I have the name of the authors, I have the date of publication, the name of the article. Otherwise, when you write, the reader will not know what article you're talking about. And it's amazing how many people forget to do this. Okay, now you're going to compose your summary. Okay, so we're actually going to compose a summary. And what is a summary? Well, it's a brief recap of the author's main points. Another way of stating this is to say a summary can be defined as an abbreviated restatement of the author's main points. A summary always includes the author's name, here we have several, the title of the article, and the author's main points. We also put the year that the article was published. Well, why do we learn to summarize? Well, because you're going to use it in college courses like this one. You're going to use it in the workplace as well. For example, in college courses, summarizing textbooks chapters is a good way to review the main points of chapters. They do this in order to better comprehend or understand something that they're reading. So this is a very good use of summarizing, because if you can't put it in your own words, you don't understand it. Also, we use summarizing to write research papers. You summarize expert evidence from journal articles in order to support your arguments. Students also use summaries to reinforce their own ideas to make their points clear. They do this so that they will have a condensed version of the source handy as they write their papers. By the way, have you seen the abstract? I know that you've looked at some journal articles. Well, the abstract that appears at the beginning of research articles is a summary that contains the central idea and main points of an article. You, as a writer, can decide if you want to read all of the article or if it's actually what you need. Also, another example of summarizing is if somebody asks to borrow your lecture notes, they're basically asking for a summary of the lecture. In other words, they want you to share the most important information from a class lecture. Before starting to summarize something for a research paper, it is important to ask yourself, why am I summarizing this source? Once you've decided why you're summarizing the source, you want to read the text several times and highlight the main points. We've done this. You might also take notes as you read. Remember, you annotate. Remember that the most important thing you are looking for when you read a passage that you want to summarize is the main ideas. The sentences you've highlighted should summarize the different points in the text. Now ask yourself, what is the central idea or thesis of this article? Be sure to avoid a common mistake less experienced writers make when composing a summary. They often include minor details in the passage rather than just the main points. In other words, you should shorten the original source to include only the most important points. And a good way, we said, remember to check that you've done this, is to outline the reading passage. Once you've finished your summary, go back and read the original text to ensure that you've not changed the author's meaning. Now that you're ready to summarize, you're going to use your own words. You're going to make sure, usually for a response essay, you're only going to have a one-paragraph summary of the article. And we're going to start our summary with an attribution to the source. Remember, Rebecca Moore, Barbara Baker, Arnold Packer. The article Coping with Procrastination was published in 1997. And I want to make sure that what I say is an accurate summary of the author's ideas. So I've got all 4 pieces of my information here, and I have a sentence for each one of the main points. I've been sure to use my own words, but I still have to tell where I got this information because it's not my ideas. Otherwise, I've plagiarized. And I'm going to go back, I'm going to take my summary, I'm going to compare the ideas to the ideas in the article to make sure that I've not changed what the authors actually said. So here is a 1-paragraph summary of the article Coping with Procrastination. Rebecca Moore, Barbara Baker, and Arnold Packer, 1997, in their article Coping with Procrastination, identify 5 causes of procrastination, and offer solutions for overcoming each of them. The authors point out that over-worrying about consequences lead many people to put off completing tasks. Another culprit is being a perfectionist, which might be traced back to a fear of failure. There is also the lack of motivation to do what is supposed to be done. In addition, procrastination can be a result of burnout or continuous exhaustion. Finally, Moore, Baker, and Packer mention the absence of proper knowledge or assistance in doing the task as a possible reason for why people procrastinate. The article suggests solutions for each of these problems. Now, I have my summary, so I'm ready to write my response essay. And some of the features of a response essay are that it's subjective, it varies in content, it varies in length, and it uses informal language. Now, when I say varies in content, the body of my paper draws on either personal experience. How did I relate to this article? Or how can I apply what I've read to real life? Or it might, more often than not, it might be, do I agree or disagree with the ideas? And the sample that we're going to use today will be agree or disagree. Now, which do I know to do? Well, it depends on what the writing prompt is. Okay. Now, we have 2 organizational patterns. The first pattern is where, but your introduction, it actually, is 1 to 2 paragraphs, and in it you're going to give the name of the author and article, summary of the main idea in the article, and then have the main idea of the response essay. In other words, where, but you're going to name your writing prompt, and you can either paraphrase what you're responding to, or you can actually quote the writing prompt. Then you're going to have 3 to 5 body paragraphs where that you have your response to the article, and you use evidence to back up these responses, and finally you have a conclusion. Now, compare this to pattern 2, where again you have an introduction, but usually it's a 2-paragraph one, and it will talk about, usually it'll start off to grab the reader's attention. Commonly it's with a short anecdote that will do it, that's related to the actual writing prompt. Then you'll have another paragraph that will talk about the subject and purpose of this essay. In contrast to pattern 1, where you had the summary of the main idea in the article and the introduction, here the summary paragraph appears as part of the body. And then you have 3 or more responses, paragraphs, where you respond to the writing prompt. And you end with the conclusion. What does this look like? Well, here is model response essay pattern 1. In it, notice this one is going to it's going to tell us what the article is about. Rebecca Moore, Barbara Baker, and Arnold Packer, 1997, in their article, Coping with Procrastination, identify 5 causes of procrastination and offer solutions for overcoming each of them. Notice that here is my summary. My whole summary is put in here. Now, I have the writing prompt, which has been paraphrased, because they've asked what the writing prompt was, did the writer agree or disagree with the article. Overall, while I agree with all the reasons the authors give, I feel that they are lacking. In other words, they're not sufficient. They're not enough of them. Then each of the body paragraphs, starting with 2, tells why the author feels that this is not well developed enough. I find that there are more reasons for procrastination than the authors discuss. And see, then goes through and it discusses what are they. Well, the authors fail to mention those people who are simply too lazy to start an assignment early, those who have poor time management skills, and those who have too much to do all at once. A single mom, for instance, who has to work, go to school, and take care of the kids. And the author goes on and names all the different kinds of people that, different reasons why they're. The article advises that when you seriously do not want to do the things you need to do, you may need to reevaluate your situation. This is true, but there are those who are simply indifferent or lazy about everything in general. Although the article brings up the main causes of procrastination, there are a myriad of reasons that have been left out. Okay, now what's the second reason that this author believes that the authors haven't gone deeply enough? Well, not only does the article leave out major issues that cause procrastination, but also it implies that people procrastinate because of one implicit reason. And if the underlying cause is not uncovered, it becomes self-destructive. This is not true in my opinion. Procrastination isn't caused by just one issue like perfectionism, for instance. It is usually a combination of issues. And then notice that the author gives an example to prove her point. And it's about her friend Laura, that she had ineffective time management skills, plus she was a perfectionist. Then in our next one, it gives, although the article gives us readers valuable insight into the causes and issues behind procrastination, it doesn't give any valid solutions on how to overcome them. And why? Well, the authors describe some of the serious underlying causes of procrastination, and they ask the readers to think about them the next time you find yourself stuck by this problem. But they don't exactly tell the reader how to overcome procrastination. There are little tidbits of advice like, the best way to relieve your anxiety would be to dig in and prepare well so that you can't possibly do poorly. But these are too broad. The article needs a final paragraph that details the process that people can follow to eliminate procrastination. An eliminating procrastination playbook of sorts. Then we have the conclusion. After reading Moore, Baker, and Packer's essay, I found myself wishing the authors had done more than just skim the surface of their subject. In other words, remember, it's lacking, it's not developed enough. Being assigned to read this essay was much like being invited to a dinner where your host only serves you appetizers but no main course, leaving you ravenous at the meal's end. In a similar vein, Coping with Procrastination leaves its readers wanting a more in-depth, more sophisticated examination of the causes of procrastination and some real cures. Otherwise, Laura Kelly will continue to sit in front of her laptop, eyes glued to the clock as the seconds count down. Now, remember, this was only one model response essay. It used pattern 1, but pattern 2 is where that you actually go in and you get the reader's attention with a whole paragraph that is a short anecdote, and she talks about her roommate Laura Kelly. And then she goes in the second paragraph, and she leads up to what is the thesis of her paper. All in all, I find that the author's insights into the problem of procrastination are lacking. In her third paragraph, this is where she puts the summary. And here is the summary. The next few paragraphs is where she develops each one of her responses. That the author mentioned those people who are simply too lazy. In other words, they're not all the answers. Major issues that cause procrastination, but also implies that people procrastinate because of one implicit reason. It doesn't give any valid solutions on how to overcome them in the sixth paragraph. And then, of course, we end with the conclusion. Now, to review, what do we do? Well, before we even start, we are always sure to read and annotate the article. And then we write an outline. We compose the summary. After we've done that, we ask ourselves, what is our response to the article? Maybe we found that we could relate to the article because of personal experience, or we could apply the ideas related in the article, or we agree or disagree with what the author has written. We use one of these approaches or all of them. Then we decide which organizational pattern works best for us. Is it pattern 1 or is it pattern 2? Remember, in pattern 1, we have an introduction that gives the name of the author, an article, a summary of the main idea in the article, as well as the main ideas. Then we also have what is the thesis of our essay. And in the body, we do our responses. And then we have a conclusion. In contrast, in pattern 2, in our first paragraph, we're just interested in grabbing the reader's attention. Okay, and it might be it's usually with a little short anecdote. Okay, and then in our next paragraph, we state the subject and purpose. In the body, we start off the body with a summary of the article. Then we have our responses, and we end with the conclusion. This is how we write our response essay.